Всі вже у нас готові.
Now everyone's ready and we are starting. We'll be talking about the draft law, new draft law on police. I would like to invite Viktor Chumak, MP from the Petro Poroshenko Bloc, Mr. Pavlo Kostenko, MP from the Samopomich party, and the expert of Reanimation package of reforms, Oleksandr Banchuk. Good afternoon to everyone. I will briefly present. Do you want to be the first one? Okay, Viktor will be the first one. I'll be talking about politics, and Oleksandr will be talking about law. That's all united, but I'll be talking about political aspects of this draft law, and Sasha will talk about some legal issues. We've been talking a lot that law enforcement bodies do not correspond to the threats and challenges which exist in Ukraine today. We were saying that militia, prosecutor's office, judicial system for 23 years have been used as the instrument of pressure on business and competitors, on political opponents, and militia and prosecutor's office are just fulfilling some orders. They are acting according to old Soviet standards, and they are operating according to the philosophy of old type, Soviet type, and their internal regulations was copied from the Soviet regulations and orders. We were saying that the task of that prosecutor's office and militia is not to defend the rights and freedoms of citizens or public order, but the defense and protection of the authorities. And all that led to the events in Maidan. We saw that. And at Maidan, when militia, the special departments of militia, were not protecting the rights and freedoms of citizens, but they were executing their repression function. We had to stop it. We had to stop it long time ago. And I would like to say that we've been talking a lot about the necessity of the new law, which would change not just the name of militia to police, but would change the philosophy. Why the name is important? Because the name corresponds to the internal content of the body. When we're talking about militia, you remember what militia means. That is an armed unit of a certain class of population. In the Soviet Union, that was the armed unit of the labor people. When we're talking about police, the police means the protector of the city. The origin, it originates from ancient Greek, and that means the protector and defender of the city, municipality. And we wanted to create the defender, and not the body which would be repressive. And for more than 2 years, a working group which includes different MPs and experts was working on the draft legislation. We have another draft law registered, which is 1660, and that's on introducing amendments to the Law on Anti-Corruption Bureau. That is very important because it creates the platform for activities of another body which will be fighting corruption. Soon there will be another law passed about the State Bureau of Investigations. We are talking about a different system of law enforcement bodies in the country, about changing the activities so that we have absolutely responsible model, but on the other hand, this model is to be accessible to people and controlled by people, and then we will get absolutely normal law enforcement bodies. Now we have 2 draft laws registered in the Verkhovna Rada, 1692 and 1692-1. 92. That's the draft of the of Yuri Lutsenko, because he was the Minister of the Interior and he solved the problems. We submitted somewhat alternative draft law. We believe that that other draft law has very good portion on operational activity, but there are gaps with organizational issues. And I would like to say that we believe that our draft law is not perfect, absolutely perfect, because there's no end to perfection. But we believe that it corresponds the philosophy of the defender, of the protector of the body, which will be ensuring the rule of law in the country. But by that draft law, when registering these draft laws, we create the platform, because we want to hear what's the attitude to these draft laws of the Ministry of the Interior. We would like to invite them to cooperation. We would like them to participate in working on this finalization of these draft laws, because we need the result. We need to pass the draft law which will correspond all the challenges of the time and threats, and will be addressing all the threats, and will satisfy all the stakeholders, the citizens, the Cabinet of Ministers, the Verkhovna Rada, the Presidential Administration, the Ministry of the Interior. And I would like to address the Ministry of the Interior. Whatever we do, it will get to the Parliament. Even if you have something, it will get to the Parliament. If you have something, let's sit together, let's finalize it. There are some cases when many different stakeholders within a short period of time managed to create the draft law which will be passed. I'm talking about the 1660, about Anti-Corruption Bureau. There are many stakeholders, but working very fruitfully within 3 weeks, we managed to finalize it. And that is why I would like to address the Ministry of the Interior, the Cabinet of Ministers, the administration of the President. Let us create a working group on the basis of these 2 draft laws. Let's finalize it so that the society gets a very balanced, a very well drafted and supported by the society, by the expert community draft law, which would be regulating the activities of such an important body as the police in Ukraine. That is the main political task of that project. Now, I believe Sasha will tell you about political aspects, legal aspects, because Sasha is very good talking about legislative drafting. Good afternoon. I'm from Samopomich faction, from Samopomich party. It's difficult to add anything else to what Viktor said. We understand that the events in Maidan demonstrated that our law enforcement system is absolutely standing aside from this society, and there's no trust to the security service, militia, and prosecutor's office. Talking about the level of corruption, our position 142nd in the world shows that this law enforcement system doesn't work at all. A year ago, starting from Maidan, when reanimation package of reforms was set up, we started to work on the package of legislation related to changes in law enforcement bodies. That is not the first draft. Before that, there was a law on Anti-Corruption Bureau. Later, the law on Prosecutor's Office. We can add the law on lustration, and these are all draft laws which were drafted with the participation of the experts, of the civil society organizations, and politicians. From our side, such people as Oksana Syraid, Elena Sotnik, Ruslan Sidorovich started to work on this draft law, and now they're MPs and they also involved into this process. So we received a very good draft law. Work on this draft on anti-corruption bureau shows that we all together during a brief period of time, within a week, 2, 3, 4, we can finalize and create the draft law, which we can say that is the best drafts that were developed in our country. I believe that we will all vote for that, and we will get a very good result now. The law on the State Bureau of Investigation is almost ready, and the same group of experts and MPs worked on that. And these are people from expert community. They just now became the MPs. What else should I add? Basically, Sasha will answer other questions. We as Samopomich, we have joined this work and we support this draft law, and we would like to emphasize that most people from the Ministry of Interior should also join us in this work, and just like with other draft laws, we will be able to finalize this one, and we'll get such a body as the Ministry of Interior, which will become part of this society. For 23 years, it was absolutely standing aside of the society, was not cooperating with that. That was the country within the country. And this draft law makes it possible to unite the interior bodies with this society and to make it, to take it at a different level. Oleksandr Banchuk, expert of RPR. So briefly, what I would like to tell you about the content of the draft law, which is registered now, and I hope that it will be considered by the Parliament. Viktor said it correctly. We started working in autumn of 2013. But this work was going on and was interrupted because you understand what events were taking place within this period of time. But we want to get a different police now. We have all these laws and international standards, the laws of 15 countries of Europe which regulate the activities of and police. Then we translated that into Ukrainian to understand what how it works. Then we got together all those practices and started to work with these ideas. What were the major ideas which we were trying to include into our law? Draft law. Based on our research, we believe that in the countries of the Central and Eastern Europe, after they left the Soviet and socialist system, there were three main principles, which are called the principles of 3D, and we declared them as well. First D is depolitization of the future police. What is meant is that we need to separate police from the Ministry of the Interior. The minister, who's politician, should have no influence on operational influence on activities of the police, because he is politician. As soon as politician gets involved into real political activity, will have again the selective persecution, and that is what Europe has been criticizing us. Depolitization also means that at the level of the law, and we were trying to define it in the draft, the procedure for issuing orders, so that politicians have no right to issue orders as to cases on administrative violations or criminal cases. Another D means demilitarization. That means that we need to forget in the future that the militiamen is something like military, because policeman is a civilian with weapons, with uniform, but he is a civilian, civil service, civil servant, and that is why we are following this way in the draft. That the police titles should be different from military titles, so that everyone who goes to police should understand that he's not in the military troops, but in a different body. And the third principle is decentralization. That means that the draft law defines that after the full-fledged administrative territorial reform, there should be a local police set up, which will have no powers in the sphere of criminal investigation, but it will be uniting the subdivisions of the patrol service and local inspectors, police inspectors, because a year ago in Maidan people were saying that we need to create police in the communities. Every second politician was talking about that because they saw what centralized militia or centralized Ministry of the Interior and then can lead to, and that's the test to check whether the promises that were given in Maidan will be executed. And also, I believe for the government, for the Ministry of Interior, for the politicians, that's the test for being European, because we will not, we do not write anything new into our text. In our text, we just adapt what European countries have to our environment. And as experts, we will understand that our government, our Ministry of the Interior, is not ready to act according to European standards. So this draft law is also a test for all of us to see whether we are European or not. Thank you. Two questions. You mentioned that the police should not be subordinate to the Minister of the Interior. Should it be a separate structural unit? The draft law defines that police is the central executive body, which is coordinated by the Ministry of the Interior. That means that the Ministry of Interior is just the central apparatus, which is in Kiev, a regional, in the normal country, and in our country there should be no regional divisions of the Ministry of the Interior. There should be just the local bodies of police. Yeah, these are interesting questions, and I would like to answer them. I would like to say that we today do not have the Ministry of the Interior. We do not have it. Forget that we have the Ministry of the Interior. We have the Ministry of Militia, the ministry which is responsible for the public policy in the sphere of investigation of criminal cases. The Ministry of the Interior in European countries is much wider, talking about their tasks and functions. The Ministry of the Interior is a political roof, and it unites different executive bodies which are responsible for different aspects of public policy. For example, the Ministry of the Interior has the structural unit, the central executive body, like the national police. The national police is the body which really defends the order, public order. Then another body would be the border guards, and that is the service which will be responsible for crossing the state border. Besides, if you go further, then this border police should be the body which will be responsible for migration policy. Another body which could be there under the Ministry of the Interior is the State Service on Emergency Situations. It shouldn't be in any other body. It shouldn't be coordinated by any other body or ministry. That's the policy, which is the policy of the interior, internal policy of the state, protecting the citizens in case of emergency situations. In other countries, in Poland, for example, the Ministry of Interior also includes the state administrations, voyevode. That's part of the Ministry of the Interior. They have voyevode who are civil servants, and they're part of the Ministry of the Interior. In the past, the Central Election Committee was also part of the Ministry of Interior. The ministry is a political structure over the public authorities which implement the state policies. So if we want to be part of Europe, we should forget that this is the ministry which is responsible for police. It is responsible for internal policy. It develops the internal policy which is implemented by the bodies which are part of that ministry. That's answer to your question. Your questions, colleagues. Kyiv TV channel, is your draft law, does your draft law include all the innovations suggested by the Ministry of the Interior? The initiative of the Ministry of Interior on the patrol police, they are now getting people. Sasha will add, I will just tell you, there could be no patrol police men without the lawn police. But the draft law defines that there should be the patrol service as part of the police, and it's important before the patrol police starts operating in Kiev, it is important to approve the lawn police, or even earlier, because our draft law, unlike others, provides for the rules of use of force, weapons, the procedure for detaining persons, and it's better if these candidates to the positions of the patrol policemen should be trained not according to the old rules, but there should be new rules implemented. It is impossible. It is important to approve that law not just before June, but even earlier, so that this new police patrol, traffic patrol, is trained differently. Just look at the titles of the two alternatives. Our law is entitled about police and the activities of the police. It's like a mini code. It defines not just what police says, what are the rights and responsibilities of the police, but also defines the procedure of activities of the police. There's a chapter which defines how all the measures are of how different measures are to be implemented, but we need to work more on that. But when militia, you remember, was applying certain measures to us, that was applied in accordance to internal sectoral provisions, but that's wrong. Everything that is used to restrict the rights and freedoms of the citizens and all the norms related to that should be described in the law. So our draft law is like a mini code. It's not just the rights and duties of the police, of the policemen, of administrative police, of the policemen, of the financial police, criminal police, border police, patrol service, but also we have the procedure of how these people should be servicing, how they should be selected, how they should be passing their competition tests. the certain police commissions will be set up. It's not a police commission which will be set up of policemen, but that is the commission which will be selecting policemen, and the citizens will be included there. These will be the representatives of the police, of the ministries, but also just the citizens. And these are not policemen who will be considering the issues of police. So this draft law makes the responsibility of police very transparent and public, because disciplinary, administrative, but because it's investigated by police commissions, the representatives, which include the representatives of the public, and that is very serious factor of public control over the activities of the police. So I would like to share that that is a mini code. Talking about personnel, I understand that the draft law envisages hiring new people. Will there be a certain social package for these policemen or these militiamen? Because all these who are in militia now, should they leave, all of them, or what? The situation is, I will tell you, the situation with prosecutor's office was very demonstrative. The new law on prosecutor's office is like a law and defines the level of the salary. According to the law, every prosecutor in the future should know that in a year, in 3 and 5, what salary they will have. But when the law on budget was passed, they canceled it for this year, and that made almost impossible such a reform. The law on police, well, there is a law on police of Slovak Republic and Czech Republic, and we repeated it at the level of the law. The minimum level of the salary is 6 minimum salaries. The person who comes to the police should get such a salary. Then they get more for each year, for each position they go up. And again, we have done that, but again, the question will be to the Ministry of Finance. Are they ready not to stop for the next years the action of these norms? And talking about persons, I can say that it's in the draft that according to the new rules, there should be new competition and very objective selection of future policemen, but there's no prohibition or limitation as to current militiamen. They can become part of this process and become new policemen, just like it's happening in Kiev with patrol service. There are no limitations. If you want, please submit, but the competition will be open and objective. That's all I wanted to share. One more question. You mentioned the 3 Ds. One of them was depolitization, and you're saying that the Ministry of Interior should become the political roof. Okay, let me answer. When I'm talking about the ministry as the central executive body, I say that the ministry itself is a political structure over the governmental bodies which execute the policy. For example, the ministry itself cannot manage state enterprises or provide administrative services. That is all done by the central authorities, the services, inspectorates, which are part of the ministry. Same thing here. What's ministry? We are from the Soviet Union, and we are used that the minister, if that's the Ministry of Agriculture, then the minister should be a very good head of the collective farm so that he knows what is agriculture. and the Minister of Interior should be a good militiaman, but that's not so. The minister should be a politician, manager, the one who can get together a team to define the state policy within this ministry. Yereska is not an accountant, right? She's not an accountant. She's a person who has been working with financial markets, but she knows how finance is working all over the world, and that is why she can define the state policy in the sphere of finance. Abramovich is not an economist, but he's responsible for the Ministry of Economic Development. But he's a businessman. He understands how well the global markets are operating. He understands economic relations. In the Western countries, the ministers of defense are women mostly. They are not military, and the heads of police are also women. So understand what ministry is. The ministry is a big think tank. It's a think tank which works, which develops the state policy, defines the resources, the directions and strategy for development of the state policy, and then defines the methods of implementation via the subordinate authorities. And by the roof, I meant that the intelligent roof, the roof of wisdom. Now, now the Minister of the Interior can hire anyone and fire anyone by issuing the order. If a politician can give an order to militiamen, we have the risk here that the order will be issued in the interests of some political party, and we want to remove that. That's what was meant by depolitization. And also there will be a competition for these positions, like we have the competition for the Director of Anti-Corruption Bureau. We want it to be open so that people understand why the government appoints this person as the head of national police, but not anyone else. And this competition will mean that the head of the police will not depend on the government or on a politician. I will have to leave now, but I will add before that. We have many questions on how to get rid of the bad prosecutor, bad militiaman, how to get rid of the bad judge. But there is one universal answer to that, and that is open, transparent competition, selection. No other. It cannot be so that good Chumak, good Yerema comes and brings a good team. If the team depends on someone, that is a bad team. If it depends on one person, you come, you organize the competition, which should be open and according to clear criteria, then best people will come. And it's even better if this competition is organized not by the agency itself, but by the public, people who control the ministry. That's panacea from all our problems. There is a competition for the president. There is a competition for MP. And I believe there should be a competition for militiaman position. Thank you. Thank you, colleagues. I do hope that in the nearest future, may I add, there's a trend now, and they want to explain to us, for example, that these new draft laws, they do not correspond to the realities. It's too early to pass them. We are not ready. For example, Anti-Corruption Bureau, they say that it will not be efficient because it has no right to exist. I would like to say that this is the way how the old system tries to protect itself. They want to continue work according to the vertical, and they want to do it like they have always been doing it in our state. And what we want to break it, we want to have the competitions, irrespective of where, in which ministry it is. Thank you. And we hope that in the nearest future we'll have a new Ukrainian police. If militia was not with people, then police will be with people. The briefing